EAGLES, Eagles.
Eagles fans, welcome back to Football 24/7. I'm DeShields II, and I'm joined by our Eagles insider, John McMullen. We appreciate you guys as always. Smash that like button. Make sure you guys are always locked in on the content. Man, you know, John, today has been an eventful day for the Philadelphia Eagles, man. And I need you to try to make sense of it for me. So let's just jump right to the headline. Philadelphia Eagles sign Julio Jones to a one-year deal. I believe he's going to start off on a practice squad, and then they're going to probably eventually elevate him at some point. But, John, walk us through what potentially led them to this decision, and what are your thoughts on the move and its impact on the offense?
That's a big one. I don't get it. 34-year-old receiver. Other than, look, they don't have a lot of depth at receivers. So we've kind of seen Quez Watkins. We've seen Olamide Zaccheaus. They're not it, as they say. They're struggling, both of them. Quez is on injured reserve now for 3 more weeks. And then if you look at that down roster, they don't really have any real prospects. I mean, Britton Covey's a heck of a punt returner, but very limited due to his size, can only play in the slot. Greg Ward on the practice squad, veteran guy, can only play in the slot, essentially. And the developmental prospects are, if you want to call him that, are Devin Allen, who, is a better developmental prospect for the U.S. Olympic team than the Eagles, let's be honest, although he's doing some nice things on special teams as a gunner. And then Joseph Nada, who's got some size, but not much else. So from the standpoint, look, he steps in, he's 34 years old. He's the 3rd best receiver. Is it a needle mover other than a big name? That I don't know, because, they have the 2nd ranked offense in football right now as we speak today, and they'll be facing off against the number 1 ranked offense on Sunday at Lincoln Financial Field. But, how much traffic, we've talked about this before, how much traffic is there going to be? He's the 4th option on paper behind A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. You could argue the 5th if, now that DeAndre Swift has gotten involved in the passing game from the running back position, had 8 receptions, I think 6 the week before. So you can make an argument he's going to be the 5th. Last time I looked, there's only 1 football. I don't know. It's a big name. This is a Hall of Fame player. Obviously, he's 34 years old. He's not playing at that level, hasn't played at that level since 2019. This is his 4th team in 4 years. He's had significant hamstring issues, played 29 games over the past 3 years, missed 21 games. He's been inactive. How does that work with a hamstring, with, continuous hamstring issues? I guess, if you want to, the positive is he's better than Quez Watkins. He's better than Olamide Zaccheaus. So technically, you get a little bit better at wide receiver 3. But for what a lot of people, and I shouldn't say all people, but a lot of people are going to expect because of the name. Yeah, I don't think you're getting Atlanta Julio Jones. Nothing's in stasis, but he should be a slight improvement if he accepts his role, and you have to ask that as well. I've been getting a lot of feedback, and some people have brought up, hey, he'll jump in the Zach Pascal role. I mean, Zach Pascal has a role player's mindset because he's a role player. Julio Jones is a Hall of Fame player. Other people he was the playmaker others were blocking for. Right. I'm not sure he's going to have that Zach Pascal mindset. And then people talk about the Eagles' red zone issues. It's the only category they're not in the top 10. That was the one knock on him at the height of his career. They never used him, whether it was his fault or the Falcons' fault. They never used him in the red zone for all his spectacular seasons. So exactly. One season with 10 touchdowns, and he had 10 on the dot. That's it. So I guess it can't hurt, but I would say it's probably not going to move the needle much for the Eagles.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you on that. I'm not really seeing, like you said, it's a low risk move, but I'm not sure how much of a reward it could be. Yeah, they're second in total offensive yards, and I believe they're fifth in scoring. But like you always say, 6-game sample size, and opponents matter, so on and so forth. So the way I see it is, I never felt like when it comes to this Philadelphia Eagles offense, personnel was the issue. Now, obviously, with Quez going on IR, they lack depth at their receiver position. So from a depth perspective, I can understand it. But when you think about it from a personnel standpoint and what's really been plaguing the Philadelphia Eagles over the past several weeks, like you said, it's been red zone, it's been efficiency. I'm one to think all yards aren't necessarily created equal. When you think about the Eagles being ranked second in total yards this season, and then you think about them being ranked third in total yards last season, only about a 6-yard difference. I looked it up. I don't look at this offense currently and say, oh, this offense is playing better or equal to the offense of last season. And I'm not sure what Julio Jones does for them when you think about it from that perspective.
Yeah, well, it's eerily similar. Reuben Frank had those numbers. It's almost exactly the same through 6 games, frighteningly so, except for the red zone stuff. And they're actually been better on third down. They lead the NFL in third down offense. So they're second in total offense, second in rushing offense, 9th in passing offense, as you mentioned, 5th in points per game. First and third down offense, 7th and fourth down offense, 23rd in red zone offense. So that's the one issue. And they got to stop turning the football over, which, reared its ugly head.
Which goes against efficiency. That's the opposite of being efficient.
Yeah. But that hasn't been a consistent problem. That's a one-game problem. So I don't know if I can panic over that. But, I see, this is where I always say the toughest thing, and I somebody joked that the, Eagles, noticed there weren't as many reporters there today because of the Phillies, and, they wanted to steal back some of the thunder. I'm not buying that. But I do think that they overreacted to one loss. Yeah, I do believe that. I called it the mercenary market last year when they brought in Linval Joseph and Ndamukong Suh. Is he going to help as much as Linval Joseph and Ndamukong Suh as a ring shopping veteran, so to speak? I don't see the role to do that. Last year there was a role for those guys, and they fit it nicely. and they made the run, came up just short. I don't know if I see the role. And when I talk about being honest, if they need help, see, here's the problem. On paper, the defense played well against the Jets because the Jets' offense is terrible, at least throwing the football. And they could load up to stop the run game. And they did a good job with that because Hall's a good player. But they need more help on that side.
Agreed.
Than they do on offense.
Agreed. You would have thought the first move would have been to bring in. I mean, they did bring in Roby, but he got hurt the second game he played, right? But you would have thought their main concern would have been on the defense side of the ball from a personnel perspective.
And maybe nobody's there. They did bring back Josiah Scott today.
They did. But again, I didn't think. I mean, you tell me, right? Did you think personnel was the issue on the offensive side of the ball?
No, not at all. If you don't have Lane Johnson, you don't have Cam Jurgens for a couple more games. So there's some injury issues. But I said it with Quez, and one of the issues, I don't have that big of a problem as most of the fan base with Quez as a third receiver because there's no traffic anyway, and he spaces the field for AJ and Devontae and Dallas. And that's what Nick believes as well. Is all of a sudden the traffic going up with Julio Jones? Maybe, because he's a better receiver. But then people are going to talk about balance. What are you going to do? Throw it more?
Exactly. And if you ask me, the Eagles throwing the ball 45 times in that Jets game, that goes against who they are, if you ask me. I believe in order for that offense to be more efficient than what they have been, they need to be more like that Rams matchup rather than that Jets matchup.
Well, I think they got sucked in by the Jets were down 4 corners. And they said, all right.
It took the bait. I think that was overreaction as well.
Yeah, I think they said, all right, there's no Sauce Gardner. There's no DJ Reed. Let's take advantage of this. And I think they made a mistake. Yeah, I do. But on top of that, they couldn't run the football at all. So that has to factor in as well. I mean, it was on not the final drive, because the final drive was the 4 and outs after the Jets scored to take the lead. But on the interception drive, which started with 4:43 left in the game, DeAndre Swift had a 9-yard gain on the second play, 9-yard rush. That was his longest rush of the day. He had 9 other rushes for a total of 9 yards. So people can talk about, well, you got to run the football. You can't run the football. You can be very disciplined. Go back to the Washington loss last year when I joked it was 3 yards in a cloud of dust, which is actually 3.3 yards in a cloud of dust. But, it's really hard to be disciplined when you're getting 3.3 yards. And Washington was in that game, and they deserve credit. 1 yard is not good enough. 0 yards is not good enough. You can't keep running the ball and putting yourself in those types of situations if you're getting nothing. There's a big difference between 3 yards and 1 yard. And the Eagles had no efficiency, to use your word, in the running game against the Jets. Just none.
Watching that game, look, full transparency, I was someone who felt like they gave up on the run game too soon. And then, in that second half, especially less than 2 minutes to go, they have no timeouts. And I think they threw the ball 3 times in a row or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was, but they stopped the clock many a times. And then I think they ended up turning the ball over, if I'm not mistaken. But I think my overall point is, when you throw the ball 45 times with this offense, I think that goes against what they do well, right? You have an offensive line. you have a quarterback who, in my opinion, his sweet spot in terms of attempts is between 28 to 35 attempts a game. When you start getting Jalen Hurts above 40 attempts, you start to increase his room for error. And, I just felt like, maybe they were just simply reacting to what the Jets gave them, but I just felt like he wasn't being put in a position to succeed.
Well, I think I agree to a point. As I said, they got enamored with the Jets being down so many players at cornerback. So I agree to a point with that. But, if you look at the first half stats,
Mm-hmm.
they had 6 carries from a running back, and they had 0 yards total on those 6 carries. I don't. At that point, you're banging your head against the wall. If you get 2, 3, something, you got to have some positivity. 6 carries for 0 yards. They had 21 yards rushing in the first half, all from the quarterback. Not one rushing yard from a running back. Well, actually, Boston had 2, but DeAndre had -4. So, it's not acceptable. And you can't keep running the football in that type of circumstance. Now, should they have went to it a little bit more later in the game? Kenny ended up having a couple carries for 13 yards. So he was a little bit more successful. Maybe when you're trying to close out the game, maybe they could have been a little bit smarter. And I think they tried, and they finally got a decent run out of Swift. But you know what? They got the first down. They got 1 first down, and that was on a pass to Dallas Goedert, by the way. Actually, 2 first downs. And the second one was a pass to Dallas Goedert. And then they ran the ball on first down. They got 1 yard. They ran the ball on second down, got 0 yards, and you're at 3rd and 9. That's the fateful play because they ran it traditionally. 1 yard, 0 yards, 3rd and 9. You're in the situation. Now, I said Nick Sirianni should have punted. I believe he should, run the football on 3rd down, punt the football, because Zach Wilson is the quarterback. So I think that was a mistake, but they were not running the ball effectively. So I can't kill them for not running the football. You need some kind of efficacy. And I'm not talking about their typical 5 yards a carry. I'm talking about 2, 3. You need some positivity. You can't always be behind the sticks.
So is it fair to say that instead of reaching for Julio Jones, they probably should have went for a running back in free agency? You know what I mean?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if you got to go with anybody in free agency. Why is this team overreacting to 1 loss?
Well, actually, I'm actually with you in terms of personnel is not an issue on the offense side of the ball. But since they did make a move, wouldn't the running back position?
Well, I would have went secondary if something's out there.
I think.
I mean, I don't know if there's anything out there on the trade market. They've already gone with Bradley Roby. There's only so many names you can pull out. But yeah, I think they overreacted to 1 loss. I don't, to me, I've been saying Howie Roseman's a top 10 GM for 10 years, and I used to get killed for it. Now everybody's on board. And, but I'll say he gets too antsy. All of a sudden you lose 1 game and you're bringing in the whole, settle down, Now, I will say they don't have a lot of depth at receivers. So, and who knows where they are with Quez Watkins and the hamstring, because with Bass guys, that could be an issue. It could be far longer than 4 weeks. So that might factor into it as well. And, you're a turned ankle away from who? Greg Ward, Joseph Nana, because Cubby's not gonna. Cubby can't be a full-time receiver. Joseph Nada is not ready to play.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's one part of this roster where you can say there's no bail safe. It's probably receiver, especially with Quez out. So maybe he's just, fixing a wrong earlier. He didn't build the wide receiver room as deeply as he would have liked. But the timing seems weird.
Right. You got the Falcons coming up. It just seems, it looks, it screams a little bit of desperation to me when you don't have.
Yeah, well, that's same here. When I saw it, I'm like, what? Really? Why? And maybe it's there's no risk. I mean, somebody pointed out not only, and he was correct. One reader pointed out it's low risk, and everybody forgets it if it doesn't work quickly. And he's right. But I don't know. I think the overriding. He lost one game, and oh, by the way, it's a game that they should have won.
If you don't,
despite being -3 in the turnover margin, because it was -3 when they should have punted the ball. And if they punted the ball, they win the game. Just run it on third down, punt it, and you win the game, even though you're -3. Strikes me as a little bit of panic, and I don't think there's any reason to panic.
Let me ask you this. In terms of the offense, right? You mentioned, we both mentioned, they're second in total yards, fifth in scoring, right? Pretty much the only issue really is red zone. But when I've watched these games every single week, and when you think about the first 6 games from last season, and you compare that to the first 6 games of this season, there's a difference in how plays are being executed. There's a difference in how guys like Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert are being involved in the offense. Obviously, AJ Brown is picking up where he left off, but there was a moment where he felt like something was off with, I guess, the distribution of he won't say targets, but I guess where I'm trying to get to is, what are your thoughts? What's your opinion on the way this offense has looked, not from a number standpoint, but from the eye test standpoint? What's your opinion on how this offense has looked and how it's flowed through the first 6 games in comparison to the first 6 games last year?
I think it's been every bit as good, except for the red zone. And actually, the numbers say differently, which kind of surprised me, to be honest. I'll try to bring them up. They're almost exactly the same, in number wise, to the point it's almost scary how close it is. And that surprised me. I thought they were a little bit better last season, and it's not the case. In fact, they're better on third downs this season. They're the best team in football on third downs. I was talking about that first drive, which was absurd. They were like a machine until they got in the red zone. So I do think everybody obviously kind of nitpicks after, they only they have the great start, but they only end up with 14 points. And that's not where you want to be. But overall, again, top 10 in total offense, number 2, second in rushing offense, 9th in passing offense, 5th in points per game, first and third down offense, 7th and fourth down offense, and then the one askew 23rd in red zone. I don't know. I watch a lot of other football as well, and that's where I think the disconnect is in Philadelphia, to be honest. I mean, there were two teams in the NFL that scored over 30 points this weekend. That's it. People were struggling all over.
Week 6 was an ugly week for football. Just in general. You bring up a good point. I'm definitely willing to admit that. The Eagles weren't the only team that struggled in week 6. I don't know if it was a lulling period. I don't know if it was one of those weeks where everybody just said, you know what, we're kind of hitting that wall a little bit. I don't know, but I will say.
I think the quarterback play is pretty bad around the NFL right now. I was mentioning that on Birds 365 this morning.
Yeah, scoring is down, I believe, I think scoring is down, or red zone efficiency is down in the entire NFL, I think, this season.
Yeah, it is. And it's been going that way over the past 4 years. I tweeted that number out as well. And I think it's directly tied to, as I said, quarterback play.
Do you think these defensive coordinators are beginning to catch up with these quarterbacks?
No, I think it's more of lack of preparation for the quarterbacks. So I think they're not as prepared to play. I remember talking to John DeFilippo years ago about this. The inability for coaches to work with quarterbacks in the off season. Everybody, because of the lack of preparation time, and this is all CBA, collective bargaining, there's nothing you can do. So it's become, and you hear me talk about this all the time. I mean, I can't stand bubble screens. Everybody runs the same stuff. So I think defenses are used to seeing it. And that makes it better. There's no Bill Walsh. There's no West Coast offense. There's no intricate play calling. It's all very simplified. And when it's very simplified, then it gets very simplified for the defense. So I think it makes it easier. It's become a game where you get the ball out quickly and into the hands of playmakers. And then, all right, what's going to happen at that point? Is a playmaker going to make a play, or is the defensive back going to make a tackle? You might have a missed tackle, and then we're talking about, the defense stinks. You might have a good tackle, and then we're talking about the offense stinks. So there's no intricate concepts, and it's turned into some ugly quarterback play. And when you have ugly quarterback play, you have ugly offense.
I have a question about, we're going to begin to close the show very soon, John. I have a question about the quality of reps between A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert. For me at least, when I watch these games, it seems like the coaching staff has no problem finding easy offense for A.J. Brown. But it seems like it's a struggle to find, to use the same word, easy offense for Dallas Goedert and Devontae Smith. Now, Devontae Smith didn't help his case on Sunday. He dropped 2 easy third down conversions. Well, I think one of them was a third down conversion. I'm not sure the other one was, but he dropped 2 wide open passes, which is very out of character for him. But I'm curious to know, what's your opinion on the quality of reps Dallas Goedert and Devontae Smith have been getting in comparison to an A.J. Brown? Because to me, like we said, it took Dallas Goedert forever to get, used or exposed in the offense. You know what I mean? And then Devontae Smith, it seems like, outside, Jalen doesn't throw the ball 45 times. He doesn't throw the ball 45 times a game every week. So those targets are skewed, in my opinion. But I want to know your opinion on the quality of reps for Dallas Goedert and Devontae Smith when you compare it to A.J. Brown.
I don't. is a go route a quality rep? I mean, AJ's is big, so you can throw the ball up.
Mm.
His great catch on the sideline. How would you describe that rep? I mean, you take a shot downfield because of his playmaking ability. And that's kind of what I said. The NFL's turning into a game where you just you try to get the ball to your playmaker, whether it's downfield on a go route, on a 9 routes, or bubble screens. That's what it's turned into. Basketball on turf. Instead of the 3-point shot, it's all right. How many times you see you're behind the sticks, 3rd and 15? What do people do? They run the bubble screen, try to get a block.
Right.
It's no, there's no people clearing out. There's no design concept. Again, I go back to Bill Walsh. And there's certain teams, certainly there's still Shanahan offenses that use a lot of play action. But more and more it looks like Saturday. Looks like you're watching Saturday football's turned into Sunday football. And by that, I mean college. Everybody runs college concepts now. And it's ugly. But, so here are the exact numbers. 2022 through 6 games, 147 points. 2023, 148. 2,367 yards in 2022, 2,370 in 2023. 144 first downs in 2022, 143.
Are you saying they through 6 games? Are you saying they've scored more points this year than last year?
Yes, one more point. This year than last year. It's eerie. 5.6 yards a play last year, 5.6 yards a play this year. The only difference is they're 51% on 3rd down this year, which is the best in football. They were 44 last year, and last year they were much better in the red zone than they are this year. And if they were similar to what they were in the red zone last year, they'd have way more points.
That's what I was going to ask you. So you're saying if they were actually remotely efficient in the red zone, they would have significantly more points?
Yes. They already have. They have one
Wow.
more. So, yeah, everything's skewed by people's perceptions. But the offense has been very good. Very good.
I mean, we
finished.
Through between the 20s, they can move the ball, right? We've seen that. But that red zone efficiency, it's hurting them. And they will not be, because based off everything we're talking about here, if they were just decent in the red zone, they would be better than last year. So I'm curious, what's the disconnect? I'm not I mean, obviously Shane Steichen and Brian Johnson are 2 different guys. But to me, I chalk it up to the talent. This team is just talented on offense. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, it's tremendous. It's tremendously talented.
And they have another year together. So it's only natural that they would become better together. But still, to me, it doesn't look the same. I don't know. I know the numbers are saying one thing. I totally understand that. And maybe I am nitpicking because you talk about it all the time. A team that's good, you're going to have to find something to talk about.
The first time they touched the football Sunday against the Jets, they went 19 plays and 91 yards. 19 plays and 99 yards. 3rd and 8, Jalen Hurts to AJ for 10 yards. 3rd and 7, Jalen Hurts to AJ for 8. 3rd and 2, it was a short pass to Boston Scott for 14. 3rd and 10, they get 7 yards near the goal line. Then they go for it on 4th down, and that was the play that was reviewed, and they ultimately scored. I mean, 19 plays, and that's just demoralizing for a defense. Now they couldn't keep it up. Part of that, to be honest, had to do with losing Lane Johnson in the drive. That sure totally changes the game. But yeah, I mean, and this is why I talk about the panic aspect of it. This offense is really good. I'm worried about the defense. We spent a whole show. We didn't even talk about it. That's what I'm worried about.
What's a
But
good point?
but everybody gets caught up in the moment. And again, I shouldn't say everybody. I shouldn't speak in absolutes. But they get caught up in the moment, and the defense was pretty good against the Jets. But you're playing Zach Wilson. All right. Tua's showing up this weekend. Tyreek Hill's showing up this weekend. Jalen Waddle's showing up this weekend. That's what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned with the other side of the football, which basically has to rely on the pass rush. They're
I,
very limited defensively. And by that I mean not that the defensive front isn't great, because they're great, but they have to do it. They have to do it every single game, or the Eagles are in trouble. On offense, they can beat you a bunch of different ways. They were crappy running the football, which I talked about, but they were great running the football in week 2, even week 3. They can beat you running the football in certain weeks. If that's not working, they can beat you throwing the football. They can do it a bunch of different ways on
I have
offense.
a question really quickly. Is it possible for you to look up what's their average yards that they have the average yards to go on after first down, or what's their average I'm trying to figure out how to word this. What's their average yards to go on third down? Am I are you understand?
Yeah, no, that number, you got to break it down. You just got to go through the chart. I just gave you that first drive. They were converting. Obviously, it's much easier to convert 3rd and 2 if you're ahead. The whole playbook is in play. But their first third down was 3rd and 8. That's long.
Okay.
3rd and 7. They were converting 3rds and 8s and 3rds and 7s. As I said, it was 3rd and 10. They didn't convert, but they got 7 yards, enough to go for it on 4th down. So that factors into it as well. Number one, bottom line is, and the sample size is getting larger now, over 50% on 3rd down, and number 1 in the entire NFL.
What's been this is my final question for you, John, and then after that, I'll let you cook. What's been your opinion on the Philadelphia Eagles offense on first down? I'm real big on winning first down. To create a better situation for you on 3rd down, right? What's been your overall opinion or observations from the Philadelphia Eagles offensive efficiency on first down?
It's fine. They're good at everything. The only thing they didn't do well in even New York, even though they didn't score a ton of points, they didn't score a ton of points because they turned the football over. And don't get me wrong, losing Lane was a big part of it. But they generally move the football. And how many times are you going to have Devontae Smith dropping 2 passes? Like, I'm not concerned about that. Other people can be concerned about it. I'm not concerned about it. Everybody has bad games. I've never seen Devontae drop 2 passes. Probably won't see it again. Certainly not this year. How many times is Jake Elliott going to miss a 37-yard field goal? How many times is Dallas Goedert going to let the football be ripped out of his hands and ricochet to Quentin Williams? If Lane Johnson is out there, Jermaine Johnson isn't getting to Jalen Hurts, and you take another interception off the docket. The one bad play was the play that cost them the game. That was a bad play by the quarterback. If you're -4 in the turnover ratio, you should lose by 2, 3 touchdowns, they should have won the game. Now, if they managed it right, they would have only been -3. But it's still typically when you're -3, you don't win football games. This team could have won that football game. So in a way, silver lining, whatever you call it, that's a positive that you're even in that game.
Yeah, I'll end it on this note. You're right. The offense is supremely talented, and based off the numbers, they're damn near identical to last year. You're also right about, people, we as a whole should probably be more concerned about the defense. But I think entering the season, even in the offseason, we knew defense was going to be the weak link on this team, and offense would have to carry them. I think a lot of us knew that. At least the offense would have to carry them until the defense finally caught up with it, right? But there's just been a significant difference in personnel in comparison to 2022 versus 2023 on defense. That front seven, you can make an argument it probably got a little bit better. Maybe not at the linebacker position, but the defensive line, you can probably make an argument it got a little better. But I guess for me, because I already accepted the fate of the defense entering the season, I look at this offense as, okay, they're not living up to their side of the bargain from a red zone perspective, from a touchdown perspective, because I think they're putting the defense in a lot of tough situations by continuing just to settle for field goals. And you said, they, from a numbers perspective, they're pretty identical, but this schedule is only going to get harder, and the way they've been playing won't cut it against the Miami Dolphins. Won't cut it against.
Well, and that's a test. I mean, Miami's averaging 37.2 yards per 37.2 points per game. 37.2 points per game. 498 yards. There's never been a disparity. They're number 1, 498. Eagles are number 2 at 395. They have 103 more yards per game than the Eagles, number 2. If this defense plays well against the Dolphins, give them all the credit in the world.
Absolutely.
I'm not giving them credit against the Jets. To a certain way, I give the front credit because they're good and they played well.
Give them credit to the Rams. For the Rams in the second half, I'll give them credit for that. But you're right. It's the Jets.
Yeah. If it were Aaron Rodgers out there, I'd give him credit. It wasn't. And there were some deficiencies there with Zach Wilson. But, yeah, I'm more concerned about that. And, Bradley Roby's unlikely to play this week. We'll see tomorrow at practice. They're having a walkthrough, but they have to issue injury reports. So we'll get to know a little bit more about Reed Blankenship. Sidney Brown should be back, but then again, I thought he'd be back this week. We'll see where Slay is as well. They need all hands on deck for Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and company.
Yeah, I would agree. So, let's end it on that note, John. I appreciate you as always, JM, for always providing your insight. I appreciate the hard work you do, and I definitely appreciate your objective opinion about the Philadelphia Eagles. It's always welcomed, and it's always a breath of fresh air for sure. Eagles fans, make sure you guys smash that like button. We really appreciate you guys always for locking in on the content. It seems like we got somebody from the United Kingdom holding it down, so we appreciate you holding it down over the pond. Means a lot to us. Make sure you guys are also subscribed to the JAKIB Sports YouTube channel. There's a lot of content cooking out over there, so make sure you guys are a part of the festivities and make sure you guys get a plate because the food is always available for you. Also, make sure you guys check out John McMullen on Birds 365 every morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Time with his partner in crime, Jody Mack. Check out the Sports Take Guys with Derek Gunn and Rob Ellis at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. That's the new time slot, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Time. 2 p.m. Eastern Time. And then we have Dan Cilio, the National Football Show, from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern time as well. Also, make sure you guys stay locked in on the JAKIB Sports pre, post, and halftime show featuring John McMullen as well, Seth Joyner, Mike Missinelli, Derek Gunn, Mark Frazetta, Bill Colorulo, Kayla Santiago. We have an amazing staff over there, and they do an amazing job. So make sure you guys continue to lock in on the content. You guys were watching Football 24/7 with John McMullen, and I'm your host, Tone DeShields II. We'll see you guys next time. Take care.
When it comes to the fight against insurance companies, large corporations, and the healthcare industry, injured victims are always the underdog. But that doesn't worry us. At Messa & Associates, we're an injury law firm from Philadelphia, and we come to fight. Our clients know that they've got representation with a chip on its shoulder, and it's the same chip that makes Philly the toughest city in the country. Call 215-568-3500 or visit us online at messalaw.com. Messa & Associates,